Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. The massive expansion of data centers all over the country has many people on edge. As a result, more and more places are banning them. The backlash started in small towns and farming communities where the biggest data centers have been located for cheap power and land. But now the fight has come to Seattle. Seattle City Council just approved a one-year moratorium on data centers within city limits, making the city the biggest in the country to ban them. The move comes after several big developers proposed data center projects that could use up to a third of the electricity that Seattle uses on an average day. Today, KUOW's booming team finds out, why do data center companies want to be in Seattle anyway? What happens when we tell them no, and are we better off without them?
Siri, Google how to sink a super yacht. No AI!
Joshua, I just got back from another reporting trip to Eastern Washington and Oregon, where there are tons of data centers. And I'm always struck by the scale of these things. I mean, they're massive. They can consume as much power as a city, which is why this whole fight over data centers within Seattle city limits has always seemed a little bit odd to me. I mean, they take up so much space and energy, so it just doesn't seem like an expensive city like Seattle would be the most economical choice. So what do these urban data centers even look like, and where are they fitting them?
Well, they're all over the place. Sometimes they're just hidden in plain sight. Like, the other day I was walking down Fifth Avenue, right under the monorail. And I saw this building where there was a garage in the ground floor. And then I looked up and there's like 5 floors of no windows, just blank facade. And next time you're on the monorail, just look and you can see it.
And that's a data center.
That's a data center. Data centers, they can be all sizes and shapes. And we're not talking about server rooms, like KUOW has, like many companies have. We're talking about something that's maybe a small building in a residential neighborhood or a few floors in a tower downtown. Different companies will rent space in them, like banks or Netflix or Apple. Others are much bigger, but in total, there are 30 of these already operating in the city of Seattle, and most people don't know it.
Okay, so they come in lots of different shapes and sizes. Is Seattle banning all of them? Or what type of data center is the city trying to block here?
It's trying to block really big new ones. It's defined these as data centers that use over 20 megawatts, which is enough electricity to power 4,000 homes. These are much bigger than the smallest data centers already here now, but they're much smaller than the massive data centers that you saw in places like Quincy, Washington, and Oregon. Those big massive data centers would be banned too, but no one has yet proposed a data center of that scale in Seattle.
I can't imagine where they would fit it. Okay, so we're basically talking about medium-sized data centers. Why does the city want to ban them?
Well, there's environmental concerns, how much power and how much water these things use. And there's also concern that could drive up our electricity bills and our water bills. And then there's just quality of life issues, like around data centers, a lot of people are annoyed by the light pollution and noise pollution. And because some of these can get so big, they can create heat islands, where there's just not a lot of trees around and it builds up heat.
So a lot of the same issues that are being raised in agricultural areas.
Yeah.
And to be fair, data centers do come with a lot of very valid concerns. But I've also been struck by how intense the backlash is. I think it has a lot to do with our larger anxieties about AI in the future, as much as these on-the-ground fears about things like these data centers gobbling up all the resources.
Yes, we're definitely seeing an anti-AI wave. Like, there's this group called the Washington AI Resistance.
Winning a moratorium on these data centers here in Seattle is only a first step towards stopping the greed machine.
And after the data center moratorium vote, they met outside City Hall and revealed what they're calling a People's AI Bill of Rights.
People are asking what this is doing to our children, what this is doing to our schools, and we've all been witnesses of the layoff of thousands of workers so far.
they want to slow down the speed of data center construction and increase transparency and accountability from tech companies. But this isn't just a fringe position. This anti-AI feeling is shared by a lot of people on the city council. Like Councilmember Deborah Juarez said that opposition to data centers has united this community.
We can come together on the issues that matter, and we can have our disagreements, but we certainly know when there's an existential threat, not only to our city, not only to our state, but not only to our country, but to our world.
And we should acknowledge that there's a history here.
Yeah.
The Seattle City Council has pushed back on the tech industry before. I think there's a feeling for a lot of people in Seattle, including some in city government, that tech has kind of taken over the city and turned it into something that they don't recognize.
Yeah, definitely true.
So how about the other side of this? Why do tech companies say they need data centers in the city?
Well, having data centers physically close to where people work reduces the length of fiber optic cables needed to connect the servers to the people who use them. And that reduces the time it takes for information to travel between them. Like, have you ever been watching a movie online and it has to buffer for a long time?
Yeah, for sure. It reminds me of watching movies on my laptop in my college dorm.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's known as latency.
Okay.
That's a technical term for lag time, basically. You know, like latency is really important, for example, for stock traders in New York.
Why?
Well, because fractions of a second can mean millions of dollars in profits or losses when they're sort of automatically trading stocks at certain prices.
So there are big data centers in New York City, I would imagine.
Definitely. And they want to be really close to Wall Street. Seattle doesn't have as many stock traders, but lag has consequences for companies here, too. Like Amazon doesn't want lag time when you're trying to purchase something. Video game companies don't want lag time when you're trying to battle other players from around the world. And now more and more companies are using AI, and that just increases the volume of information that's going back and forth over the internet.
Interesting. So where in Seattle are new data centers being planned?
Well, in some cases, right downtown. Like, I'll give you two examples of ones that are under consideration. The first is right near the old Macy's at 3rd and Virginia. It would replace a parking garage that's there now. This location is as close to zero latency as you can get in Seattle. There's more fiber optic cable buried underground in that neighborhood than almost anywhere else in the West Coast. Like, if you took an X-ray of the street, you'd see kind of an octopus of cables that all lead to one office tower, the Westin building.
I'm imagining like a mycelium network of red and blue cables.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to visualize it too. And the Westin building is literally right across the street from Amazon's headquarters in South Lake Union.
Well, it makes sense it would be there.
It's kind of amazing. Almost 100% of the internet traffic in the region passes through one room in the Westin building. And the closer your company's servers are to that room, the faster you can retrieve data over the internet, which is why South Lake Union is one of the most important neighborhoods for data center developers. It's not about training AI models there. It's about proximity to all that underground cable, which is like the nerve center or the spinal cord of the internet in Seattle. And so this new data center that I'm talking about by a very big data center company called Digital Realty is very, very, very close to that nerve center, just 2 blocks away. And when it's built, you probably won't notice that it's a data center because it'll have shops on the ground floor and a floor of offices above that. But if you look up, you'll see several floors with no windows where the servers will be, kind of like that one near the monorail.
So will this project get built now that there's a moratorium in place?
Probably, because they got their drawings submitted before the rule change. There are still some logistics to work out, and that requires collaboration with the city and with the utilities, but stopping it now would probably introduce the city to legal risks.
Okay, so that's one example. This very urban data center right in the heart of downtown because that's where all the fiber optic cables are. What's the other example you mentioned?
Well, my other example is part of a cluster of data centers being planned for Seattle's industrial areas south of downtown.
SoDo.
Yeah, SoDo. Right now, the area where these would go is full of warehouses and highways and, flooring suppliers, produce wholesalers. There's an electrical substation nearby and the biggest cement plant in Washington state. The data centers planned for that area are the ones that set off alarm bells at the city, and they're much larger than the one proposed for right downtown. Collectively, the data centers being planned in areas like that would have used up more than a third of the city's electricity.
Wow.
One in particular would have used up the equivalent of 10% of what the city uses on an average day, just for one building alone.
That is a lot of power.
Yeah, and when Seattle doesn't have enough power to supply all its customers, it has to buy electricity on the open market. And that can get really expensive. Or it has to spend money on new solar or wind farms, which are also expensive. And so those extra costs, people worry that they could push up our utility bills. And as a matter of fact, before she left office, I spoke to Seattle City Light's former director. Her name's Dawn Lindell. And she predicted that demand for power from data centers and from other uses like people plugging in electric cars would lead to significant rate increases in the next 10 to 12 years.
I'm curious if she has any data on that, just because I know from my own reporting, it's really hard to pin down what the big picture impact of all this is going to be. Certainly, we've seen in some places rate increases, but the experts I've talked to have said, there are thousands of different utilities across the country, all with different dynamics that go into how they make rates. And so it can be kind of hard to get a satisfying answer of how much are these things really going to change life for everyday people.
Yeah. A lot of people want an exact number there, and we just don't know.
Even though we don't know exactly how rates will be affected, this is a big area of concern for folks. So how much community support did this moratorium get in your reporting?
Well, the public reaction was massive. 13,000 people sent messages to the city council asking for these data centers to be stopped.
Wow.
That's according to a grassroots organization called 350 Seattle. And the people won. Most of these proposed projects were stopped by the moratorium. But one of these SODO data centers will probably get built because, like the other one, it submitted its drawings in time before the moratorium was adopted. You can see what it looked like on a drawing set that was on file with the city. Just picture like a 9-story brutalist apartment building with no windows, towering over the cloverleaf where cars exit the West Seattle Bridge to get on Highway 99.
I can picture it.
Yeah, this one, Seattle City Light says, could use enough electricity to power up to 11,000 homes. And again, this is nowhere near the big data centers that you've been visiting in Oregon and Quincy, where companies are training AI models, but it's still huge.
Okay, so you've described these two different kinds of data centers, one that's more about being right in the middle of downtown for connectivity, and the other that's bigger in scale and planned in Seattle's industrial areas. It seems like the moratorium is potentially going to block both kinds of data centers. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious if anybody feels like this is maybe a bit too broad.
Yeah, John Scholes, he's the head of the Downtown Seattle Association, and he told me that he thought a moratorium was a blunt policy instrument that could create unintended consequences. Like, maybe Seattle wouldn't be able to attract investments anymore, or maybe existing companies couldn't expand, their data centers when they have changing needs.
But it seems like if we do allow data centers to go wherever they want to, there could be an opportunity cost there, right? They could go in a building that could otherwise be housing downtown, or in the industrial areas even, they could displace, small local manufacturers who make more jobs than a data center does.
Yeah, those industrial jobs could get pushed down to Kent or something. But, in downtown, you mentioned housing. There are a lot of vacant floors in office buildings downtown right now. So, maybe that would be a place where you could fill those with data centers. But the problem is you can also convert offices to housing, and you can't do it if you put a data center there. And if you have too many data centers downtown, that might be hard on stores and restaurants because data centers don't have a lot of employees. They're fairly sparsely staffed. So, if you have too many of them, it could turn downtown into a dead zone at a time when it's trying to recover economically.
Okay, so the city council has passed this moratorium to hammer out some of these questions. What happens next?
Well, one of the first things is Seattle City Light is trying to prevent our utility bills from going up more than necessary. So they have a plan to start charging data centers a higher rate for their power. And they're presenting that to the city council right now. And then the city council has like a year to study the impacts of data centers on this community. So there's probably going to be more regulations at the end of that.
Well, I know both of us are going to be watching and reporting on what's become this unexpected dark horse political battle throughout the rest of the year, too.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Booming's production team includes Monica Nicholsberg, Joshua McNichols, Alec Cowan, Lucy Suchek, and Carol Smith. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. Talk to you tonight for Evening Headlines.